Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 261 based on novel. So let's start. The Dragon Emperor Dolor and Death God Dolor had teamed up. The Dragon Emperor Dolor defended, while the Death God Dolor attacked. Against more than 10 soul formations, they didn't even have any intention of retreating. On the contrary, they even suppressed their enemy. This was a demonstration of their power. Of course, Huiyuhao could also tell that this was the furthest they could go, even though they were very strong and powerful. After all, they were humans. Even though they were very strong, it was already very astonishing that could resist the world's strongest combination of soul tools. However, it was a different story if they really wanted to fight. Indeed, a huge, black dragon silently appeared below Yi Shishui. It was carrying her. In the next instant, it carried her high into the air. It broke through space just like that before vanishing into the night. This caused the second round of linked attacks to hit nothing. While they avoided the attacks, they weren't fleeing. They just left. No power was great enough to retain them. Juzi was standing in front of her tent. Earlier, she had clearly sensed that she was very, very close to death. Very soon, news passed that 67 soul engineers from the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion had died. The soul tools at the top of the mountains were greatly damaged. Only half the original strength of the soul formations could be used on now. It was just an attack by 2 people. However, that was sufficient to cripple the strongest army on the continent. This was even though the army was at its strongest. What a tragedy this was. But this was power, extreme power that humans could achieve at their limits. Juzi suddenly felt fearful. This was her first time having such a feeling. Right now, she truly understood that humans were truly the peak of this world once their abilities reached the peak. Could her army have resisted the 2 ultimate Dolor if they had attacked them sneakily? Even titled Dolor had their principles. They wouldn't hurt ordinary people. However, what could they rely on to rule this continent after their greatest fighting strength was wiped out? No wonder there were some who claimed that ultimate Dolor were the strongest strategic weapons in this world. It was indeed the case. Class 9 shells were far inferior compared to them. Ultimately, Juzi lacked such power. Juzi silently returned to her tent. She gave the order to mend the soul formations. At the same time, she also instructed her army to be more alert. The linked defensive formations always had to be half on. Once any enemy appeared, they were obliged to attack, no matter the price. Revenge was being sought on them. Next, it would depend on how they reacted to it. Today, the Death God Dolor's attack was undoubtedly just to test their strength. What was next? What would happen in the next fight? Juzi didn't know. For the first time, she felt that her destiny wasn't in her own hands. Huiyuhao and Tang Wutong continued to lie prone. They only opened their eyes after the fight was over and the Darkness Holy Dragon had concealed himself and the Death God Dolor in space. When they looked at each other, they saw the horror in each other's eyes. If it was us, how far could we have gone? Tang Wutong asked Huiyuhao a little doubtfully. Huiyuhao laughed bitterly and said, "We'd be able to resist one attack, and that's only if we have the Goddess of Light." Tang Wutong nodded gently. That was roughly what she had estimated too. It was only when the Goddess of Light was around that they could resist an all-out attack from the linked offensive soul tools earlier. The Darkness Holy Dragon resisted had 5 strikes consecutively. The first one was stronger, while the other 4 were weaker. When Huiyuhao referred to resisting an attack, he was referring to an attack of the same standard as the first strike. The Darkness Holy Dragon is too strong. Huiyuhao softly said, "I didn't expect Elder Long Xiaoyao to be so strong. If I'm not wrong, his cultivation should still be below Yi Shishui." After learning from his teacher that Long Xiaoyao had in fact been secretly helping him, Huiyuhao didn't feel so vengeful towards him anymore. "Does your teacher know that you're complimenting me like this?" A low-pitched voice suddenly sounded. Huiyuhao subconsciously tightened his grip on Tang Wutong's hand. Both of them used instant teleportation at the same time before they were reappeared 100 meters away. Immense soul power undulations also instantly rose from their bodies, reaching an extreme state. Both of them revealed horrified looks on their faces. It was important to know that they had been using imitation to conceal themselves. A black figure silently walked out from space. It was as if he had appeared from thin air. Another blood-red figure followed him out. The death god Doluo appeared even younger now. It was just that her face was very pale. Long Xiaoyao's aura was also a little unstable, but his eyes weren't lifeless. Instead, they were glistering like stars in the sky. When he saw how wary Hui Yuhao was, Long Xiaoyao couldn't help but laugh. Good, you've indeed improved a lot. No wonder Zhong Liwu suffered under your hands. I bet you didn't expect it. You didn't expect us to find the two of you, right? Hui Yuhao silently shook his head and bowed. Greetings, Dragon Emperor and Death God. Long Xiaoyao ignored his greetings and continued speaking. We only discovered you not because your spiritual power is not concealing you well enough. On the contrary, your spiritual power seems to be greatly accomplished. Even we can't discover you using our spiritual power. We only discovered you through our senses. You can't imagine how acute our senses are. You can only fuse with this world once you become an ultimate Doluo. When that happens, you'll become part of this world. When something in this world threatens you, you can still trace the source even if you can't see it. This is how we found you. Hui Yuhao laughed a little awkwardly and said, both of you are too awe-inspiring and domineering. We are very impressed, and could only cheer you on from afar. We have no ill intentions. If there's nothing else, we'll leave. As he spoke, Hui Yuhao turned around with Tang Wutong and was about to leave. Hold up. Yi Shishui's rather hoarse voice echoed. Suddenly, it was as if thousands of avenging spirits were crying sorrowfully. A huge pressure fell from the skies and engulfed Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong. Hui Yuhao's eyes suddenly lit up. There seemed to be a boundless night sky and shining stars in the depths of his eyes. His ultimate ice aura spread from his body and viciously collided with Yi Shishui's aura. A silent boom echoed through the air. A clash of auras was even more dangerous at their level than a real fight. If it were someone else with a lower cultivation, he would be instantly crushed into powder if he couldn't resist Yi Shishui's overwhelming aura. Hui Yuhao's body shook a little, and he took half a step back. Yi Shishui shook slightly, but she didn't step back. There was also an astonished look in her sinister, ice-cold eyes. She hadn't expected this young man to be capable of resisting her pressure. It was also her first time being resisted, apart from Long Xiaoyao. There were even a few kings of soul beasts who had tried before. Over the past few years, Di Tian was the only one who had put her at a disadvantage. However, she had still managed to escape safely, and Hui Yuhao had been critically hurt. Right now, she could clearly sense that Hui Yuhao hadn't borrowed Di Tian's strength, but he was still able to resist her power. This was no longer achievable by a rank 98 title Doluo. Currently, it was as if his strength was at the tier of an ultimate Dulu. How is this possible? How old is he? Has he formed his second soul core? Don't tell me that Zhong Liwu's words were true. The Dragon Emperor Doluo sighed slightly when he saw how astonished Yi Shishui was. Shishui, don't be like this. You'll only scare the kid. Yi Shishui looked coldly at him. You should meddle less with my business. It seems like Little Wu was right. This kid has already comprehended the profundity of second soul cores. He's relying on their martial soul fusion to forcefully increase his cultivation infinitely close to that of an ultimate Doluo. I really want to see if he can fight my death god pagoda. As she spoke, blood-red light shone brightly behind her. Her giant blood soul demon puppet also surfaced, and the death god pagoda reappeared. This time, it was facing Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao's expression changed greatly. He had personally witnessed how powerful the death god pagoda was. Right now, it was impossible that he was not anxious facing the death god Doluo in a duel. Shishui. Long Xiaoyao's voice became even deeper. Yi Shishui coldly looked at him. Are you trying to help him? Long Xiaoyao shook his head and retorted, "What's your temper? You've not changed even after all these years. It'll be difficult for us to kill them given that we aren't in our best condition. Since this is the case, why don't we chat with this young man? You've already used your Death God Pagoda twice earlier. If you continue using it, you'll lose yourself amidst the hostility once again. Do you really want to be like those walking dead that only know how to kill? I told you that I don't need you to meddle in my affairs." Yi Shishui shouted back, "No matter what I become, it has nothing to do with you. Long Xiaoyao, stop being sarcastic here. This kid has already threatened the Holy Ghost Church. If he didn't severely hurt little Wu and kill those from the worship hall, how could that little thief have gotten what he wanted? Do you know how long it has taken for the Holy Ghost Church to become as powerful as it is right now? Now, that bastard Xu Tianran wants to seize this opportunity to get rid of us. I want to let him witness what our true strength is." Long Xiaoyao was a little helpless as he shook his head. He said, "All right, stop playing. If you stay like this, I'll leave forever." As he spoke, he suddenly started to cough. Although his coughing wasn't very loud, it caused Yi Shishui's expression to change greatly. Her earlier hostility suddenly disappeared. She immediately patted his back gently. Xiaoyao, don't be so uptight. What's wrong? Calm down. Are you okay?" Yi Shishui asked concernedly. Long Xiaoyao sighed as he turned slightly pale. "I'm too old. My blood isn't flowing very well. If I was at my peak, I wouldn't have been drained so much from those earlier attacks. But I'm not hurt yet." "Are you hurt?" Yi Shishui was astonished. Hua Yuhao couldn't help but say, "Elder Long, you faced the linked attacks of more than 10 Soul Engineer legions of the Sun Moon Empire. Their offensive strength was too strong. It's already unbelievable that a human can resist it. Moreover, you resisted it many times." Yi Shishui's expression turned gentler. It was evident that she wasn't very well mentally. "All right, Xiaoyao, don't be anxious. I'll listen to you. I'll not harm those two kids." As she spoke, her blood soul demon puppet vanished. Her fierce and aggressive aura also disappeared. Long Xiaoyao's eyes were still very bright as he looked at Hua Yuhao. He wasn't affected just because his aura was weaker now. He stared at Hua Yuhao passionately and asked, "Have you formed your second soul core?" Hua Yuhao silently nodded. Long Xiaoyao took in a deep breath and said, "According to what I know, you are the only soul master in the past few thousand years who has cultivated a second soul core before becoming an ultimate Doluo. You're still so young too. I see hope in you." Hua Yuhao shook his head and replied, "No, I'm not the only one. Wu Tong has also succeeded." He didn't hide anything or try to bluff Long Xiaoyao. Just like Long Xiaoyao was able to find them using his senses, Hua Yuhao could sense something special coming from him for some unknown reason. This feeling developed his trust towards him. She also has won. Long Xiaoyao was stunned as he looked at Tang Wutong. "Yes. I also thought of that. Unless she formed her second soul core, how could both of you have maintained your martial soul fusion? Very good, both of you are very good. No wonder you're Mu En's disciples." Long Xiaoyao's smile was very genial. However, Hua Yuhao felt that it was very strange. It was just like Elder Mu was acting before he had passed on. He was astonished. "Don't tell me that the Dragon Emperor Doluo is also." Hua Yuhao was stunned as he looked at Long Xiaoyao. He's clearly bursting with energy. However, why is he just like teacher just before he passed away? What's going on? Yi Shishui was also a little stunned as she looked at Long Xiaoyao. "Xiaoyao, are you fine? Are your injuries okay?" Long Xiaoyao shook his head and replied, "This small wound is nothing. I'm fine, Yuhao. Both of you are also here to deal with the Sun Moon Empire's army, right?" Hua Yuhao nodded. There was nothing for him to hide. Long Xiaoyao smiled and turned his head to look at Yi Shishui. "Shishui, I can't help you if you want to harm these two kids. I owe Mu En too much. It's just like how I owe you. That's why I can't harm his disciples." After hearing Mu Yen's name, Shishue's entire body shook. Her originally sinister and cold-looking eyes revealed an extremely complex look. She squinted and turned to Hui Yuhao. This is the second time. There's no third time. When I see both of you again, I'll definitely kill you. Xiao Yao, let's go. As she spoke, she had already leapt up. After this, she flew into the distance. Long Xiao Yao didn't immediately chase after Yi Shishue. Instead, he looked at Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong with a gentle look in his eyes. Both of you have set a precedent in human history. However, don't be too arrogant. There's still a long way to go. Though both of you do have some abilities, there are many types of destructive forces in this world. You'll need to face them in the future. That's why you should take the time to cultivate more. Yuhao, when you reach rank 98, come find me at Radiant City. There's something your teacher has left for both of you. As he spoke, Long Xiao Yao stood up and retrieved a black crystal stone before passing it to Hui Yuhao. As long as you are in Radiant City, use your soul power to activate this stone. I'll find where you are and come to you. I'm leaving now. Shishue is only here to vent her anger. Given her identity, she wouldn't keep attacking the Sun Moon Empire's army. After all, the Holy Ghost Church's base is still in the Sun Moon Empire. I don't know what she's going to do next. Both of you must be extra careful. Since she said that she'll deal with both of you the next time, she'll not go back on her words. Furthermore, both the Sun Moon Empire and Holy Ghost Church are determined to get rid of both of you, especially you, Yuhao. Your presence has already made Shrek Academy much brighter than it's supposed to be. That's why you must be prudent and careful no matter when. Thank you for your concern, Elder. Hui Yuhao respectfully bowed to Long Xiao Yao. Long Xiao Yao waved his hands. A sorrowful look suddenly appeared in his eyes. He sighed before he drifted up and chased after Yi Shishue. He instantly disappeared. Tang Wutong stuck out her tongue as she watched him leave. She said, "These ultimate Doluo are indeed very strong. We're still very lousy compared to them." What Elder Long is hinting is that we've become a little inflated after we've become transcendent Doluo. At times, it's better if we cultivate. Come on, let's start now. Hui Yuhao was a little annoyed. There's such a beautiful view here, but we're going to cultivate. Won't it dampen our mood? Tang Wutong chuckled and said, "When we first entered the academy, who was the one who cultivated tirelessly and was unwilling to waste even a second? Don't tell me you are becoming lazy. We have a heavy responsibility on our shoulders. I'll carry half for you in the future, but you'll still need to carry the other half. Come on." All right. Hui Yuhao leaped towards Tang Wutong immediately. Purplish gold light suddenly flashed, and a huge dragon head blocked him off. Hui Yuhao screamed tragically and flew more than 10 meters away. What are you doing?" He lay on the ground, extending his limbs and complaining to Tang Wutong. Tang Wutong revealed a sly look on her face. "My father's seals don't seem to be fully gone. That's why." After half a minute, both of them sat cross-legged on the grass. Their palms were clasped together and they entered cultivation. This was their first cultivation together ever since they became Transcendent Doluo, and after Tang Wutong formed her second soul core. After their Haodong power formed once again, they were able to cultivate using their martial soul fusion again. Before, they had used such a method to grow stronger and stronger. The interaction of their soul power in a fight and during their cultivation was completely different. Hui Yuhao's whirlpool-like soul power poured into Tang Wutong's left hand through his right hand, and Tang Wutong's whirlpool-like soul power poured into Hui Yuhao's right hand from her left hand. When their soul power poured into each other's bodies, their bodies shook, and bright light shone from them. A golden sun and blue moon, as well as another golden sun and purplish moon, appeared at the same time. The golden suns were slowly getting closer to each other above their heads. After this, they fused together, an immense spiritual energy shot into the sky. A beam of strong golden sunlight tore the night sky apart. It was like a bright golden beam that held the sky together. The blue and purplish moons also shone brightly. Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong's bodies started to become clear and transparent. It was even clear that 4 soul cores were rapidly revolving inside their bodies. The whirlpool-like soul power in their bodies kept on circulating. The blue and purplish moons slowly drifted in between both of them while the suns were above them. The 2 moons fused together just like that. The moonlight turned bluish-purple, and it was very bright. In the air, origin energy of heaven and earth surged towards their bodies. After surging into their bodies, it was crushed and filtered before it fused with their soul power. In just a day, Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong's soul power had completely transformed. It felt brand new to them now. It shone with a strange glow, which was a combination of blue, purple and gold. Those 3 colors intersected with one another to produce a strange yet dazzling radiance. After this fusion, their soul power was also a few times stronger than it was before. Every whirlpool had a strong suction force, absorbing the origin energy of heaven and earth into it. Should we run? Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong opened their arms at the same time. After this, they both held onto each other's hands and concealed themselves in the night sky. They had no choice but to flee. They were so close to the Sun Moon Empire's army. Who would have expected them to create so much noise just by cultivating? What were they waiting for if they didn't flee? At least they had to find a cave before they could cultivate again. Their Haodong power was still joined, but what they found weird was that their soul power retained its original state. Their whirlpool-like soul power was still very strong. It was the result of their enhancement, however, the radiance that had appeared during their cultivation earlier had disappeared. The suction of air had also disappeared. What's going on? Tang Wutong asked Hui Yuhao. They were telepathically connected. Hui Yuhao naturally knew what she was asking. I don't know either. Hui Yuhao was a little helpless as he answered, don't tell me that the soul power we generated during our cultivation is already beyond the restraints of this world. Tang Wutong shook her head and said, I don't think so. It might have been so before. However, it's clear that our abilities are still too weak after I witnessed the Darkness Holy Dragon's power earlier. I believe our fused soul power is barely at the realm of an ultimate Dolor. I don't believe it has exceeded the restraints of this world. Hui Yuhao said, I don't understand what's going on either. The only explanation I can think of is that our fusion is only perfect only if it's completely silent. We can't use that radiant whirlpool-like soul power to fight. It's only an alternative method for us to restore our soul power. Let's try more. Even if we can't use it to fight, it's still not bad to increase our recovery speed. Both of them flew very far away and found a dense forest to hide in. Tang Wutong blew open a cave with her dominant aura, and both of them went inside. They were very excited by this new discovery. They were still quite traumatized after they were subjected to pressure by the 2 ultimate Dolor earlier. Their thirst for power appeared once again. This time, it was unprecedentedly strong. Hui Yuhao used a few branches to cover the opening of the cave, to prevent any light from shining out. In a short while, a small cave took form. Hui Yuhao held Tang Wutong's hands as they stood in the cave. Let's focus our energy and try again. Let's see whether we can enter that state while standing up. All right. Tang Wutong nodded. Their hands were connected once again. Their soul power circulated in their bodies. The golden suns, blue moon and purplish moon appeared once again. After this, the radiant whirlpool started to glow once more. The difference from before was that their fusion was more rapid this time. Furthermore, a dazzling, spinning halo appeared around them after this fusion. Both of them felt that their soul power was being restored very quickly. It then started to slowly increase after reaching the peak of their restoration. While slow was a subjective term, it had to be noted that it was very difficult for Transcendent Dolor to increase their abilities through cultivation. However, their soul power was slowly climbing. This meant that they could cultivate their abilities in such a state. Their cultivation speed was even faster than most ordinary Transcendent Dolor. As they looked at each other, they could see the excitement in each other's eyes. They knew that they had found another way to improve. While this couldn't be directly used on a battlefield, it was still very beneficial to them if they wanted to last in a fight. As long as they had a little time to rest, they could recharge and restore their energy at the fastest speed. They managed to fully tap into the advantages of having yin-yang complement soul cores. Both of them quickly entered a cultivation state. Their 4 soul cores fused and intersected. As they resisted one another, brand new soul power was unleashed once again. Their cultivations were also increasing dramatically. Originally, forming yin-yang complement soul cores had already given them the potential to experience significant improvements in their cultivations. Tang Wutong had also managed to form yin-yang complement soul cores with Hui Yuhao's help. This was unprecedented. Furthermore, most of Tang Wutong's spiritual power in her spiritual soul core came from Hui Yuhao. She had absorbed, transformed and turned his spiritual power into her own spiritual power. This made their spiritual power even much more compatible. This was also why they had no problems fusing their martial souls, and once again generated Haodong power. Of course, their Haodong power was far, far stronger now than it was before. While they were threatened by the death god Dolor earlier, Hui Yuhao was in fact not afraid of her at all. What he was afraid of was that Long Xiaoyao would do everything he could to help her. Ever since he had interacted with Long Xiaoyao, he became more and more curious about him. His abilities were undoubted, given that he was also from the same generation as Elder Mu. It wasn't even overboard to say that he was the strongest human in the world right now. However, why was he willing to be used by Yi Shishui? Since he could make his name along with Elder Mu, it also meant that his character wasn't too flawed either. Or this was what Hui Yuhao felt, at the very least. Moreover, Elder Mu had also mentioned that he was helping him. However, Hui Yuhao realized that his help for Yi Shishui was always unselfish every time he saw him. It was definitely not a formality. But why is this so? Is he being controlled by her? Impossible. When Long Xiaoyao and Elder Mu made their name, Yi Shishui wasn't even so strong. So why could she control Long Xiaoyao so easily? It's really ridiculous for an ultimate Dolor to be under this kind of restriction. However, if this isn't the case, why is he listening to her? This doubt kept on racing in Hui Yuhao's mind. This was why he didn't dare to take the risk. Against the death god Dolor, he and Tang Wutong wouldn't be at too much of a disadvantage even if they couldn't beat her. However, things would be different if Long Xiaoyao got involved. They might not even have an opportunity to escape. This was why Hui Yuhao was very careful. He didn't even reveal his morning dew dagger, because he wanted to only use it at the most critical of times, when they had to escape. Fortunately, Long Xiaoyao didn't abet Yi Shishui. Yi Shishui even chose not to attack, and left because she was giving Long Xiaoyao face. This also left Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong relieved. However, their thirst for strength also grew because of this incident. Their earlier satisfaction and perhaps arrogance had ceased to exist. To fight ultimate Dolor, it was paramount for one to become one too. Long Xiaoyao's advice was indeed golden. Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong quickly entered cultivation. Their soul power was around rank 95 now. They had just become transcendent Dolor. However, this wasn't really anything major. It wasn't the crux of the problem. Given their cultivation speed, Hui Yuhao was completely confident of raising his soul power by another rank. In less than 2 years, they would be at rank 98. This was the major benefit brought about by their yin-yang complement soul cores. I wonder what teacher asked Long Xiaoyao to pass to us when we reach rank 98. Hui Yuhao was actually very curious. This was because Mu En didn't mention this when he had helped him form his twin soul cores. This was why he was feeling rather anxious in his heart. If Elder Xian knew the Dragon Emperor Dolor, he would have immediately told Hui Yuhao that the Dragon Emperor Dolor was lying. The reason was very simple. This was because Elder Mu had really passed away, and his soul had dissipated. If there was anything he had left for Hui Yuhao, he would have told Elder Xian before he died. It was a pity that Hui Yuhao didn't know all this. He was still thinking of finding the Dragon Emperor Dolor after he made a breakthrough, so as to find out what was actually going on. As time passed, Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong's soul power was increasing under their mutual influence. Cultivation didn't affect Hui Yuhao's sense of the outside world. His immense spiritual power naturally formed a spiritual force field. This force field spread, and even the path connecting the Sun-Moon Empire and that mountain valley was engulfed within it. Sun-Moon Empire Army, Commander Tent. 2 days had passed. Ever since Yi Shishui had attacked, 2 days had passed. She didn't appear again. However, her single appearance had already left all the soldiers traumatized. She was too strong. The two of them had managed to resist the Sun-Moon Empire's linked offensive attacks and even almost destroyed their linked defensive soul tools. What kind of power did they possess? 2 ultimate Doluo were actually so terrifying. It was beyond everyone's imagination. Not many soldiers had been killed, but the surviving ones were under a great psychological burden. Because of this, many of the advanced tier soul engineers had not even smiled for 2 complete days. They finally realized the truth now. They finally understood how strong the Holy Ghost Church was. In terms of higher-end combat strength, they were still the best in the Empire. News of the attack had been sent to the capital. However, it seemed to have disappeared. No news was transmitted back. It seemed like Xu Tianran had given up on them. Is it a lesson for us? Juzi muttered. 2 days were enough for her to think through many things. If the death god Doluo was relentless, she wouldn't have used such a method. Even if she cared about face a lot, she could just use her light of the death god when our defenses are at their weakest every day, if she wanted to use brute force. The army would continuously suffer damage, and we'd keep on living in fear. It would be almost impossible for us to chase after them too. However, she didn't so. This means that she's still very concerned about the Holy Ghost Church's position in the Empire. She won't do anything anytime soon. It's just that I don't know what they're up to next. Juzi was very unsettled. She was even more willing to face the violent Yi Shishui, rather than not face her at all. No matter what, I must destroy the Holy Ghost Church. Otherwise, there won't be any peace in the Empire in the future. When she thought of the strengths of the 2 ultimate Doluo, Juzi couldn't help but shudder. In the future, this empire would belong to her son. How could she tolerate outsiders in the empire? With them around, the rule of the empire would be greatly influenced. Son, don't worry. No matter how difficult it is, I'll help you get rid of these obstacles. Juzi was immediately inspired to fight when she thought of her son. Her earlier cowardice disappeared. To a mother, she wouldn't fear any enemy if it was to protect her own kid. Report. A frantic voice shouted. Juzi calmed down a little before saying, report. The Empire's reinforcements were attacked outside the valley. All of them have been killed. When we arrived to help them, there were only corpses. All their resources have been taken too. What? Juzi was aghast. She looked horrified. What have you discovered? The messenger lifted his head. After hesitating for a moment, he replied, there are traces of spectral creatures. Our aerial surveillance soul tools also discovered something like a bone dragon flying into the distance. The aura of spectral creatures has also been left behind. The 1,000 soul engineers that were sent to help have all been. 1,000 soul engineers. Even if they were from the reserves, they were still trained by the Empire. With the help of these 1,000 soul engineers, she could replenish everything she had lost at the front lines. How could she not be enraged now that everything was gone? However, she also felt a little weird just as she was enraged. This was because she knew that Yi Shishui's attack had ended, and her attack was already enough to strike fear into her troops. Why did she attack again? The Holy Ghost Church was the prime suspect because of the spectral aura. Unless... Juzi thought of something, and immediately recalled the magical dimension. Yuhao, is it you? When she thought that Hui Yuhao could be nearby, Juzi started to become more energized. Her earlier rage also disappeared. If Yuhao is responsible for this, that explains it. However, no matter who did this, I'm going to put the blame on the Holy Ghost Church. There's no lack of opportunities to deal with them. One such opportunity has arrived. Send an order to gather all the Legion and Vice-Legion commanders in the commander's tent for a meeting. Yes? Juzi squinted. Since there's such a prime opportunity, don't blame me for being vicious. If I don't use this opportunity well, I'm not fit to be the war god empress. Holy Ghost Church, be prepared to incur Shu Qianran's wrath. As she thought, she quickly walked to her desk and started to furiously pen a letter. After a while, all the Legion and Vice-Legion commanders had gathered at the commander's tent. There were even Class 9 Soul engineers from the worship hall. This video will end here.